It is really absolutely crucial that we have these type of meetings, because we have obviously going on the terrible Russian onslaught in Ukraine, but we also have to understand, and that's why G7 comes in, and how G7 comes in, that it is not just the Euro-Atlantic, it's also the Indo-Pacific. And then obviously, we are all very worried about the developments in the Middle East, in Gaza, Israel, Lebanon. So these multiple big crises taking place at the same time need our attention. And obviously, from a standpoint of NATO, we are particularly focusing on what is happening in Ukraine and how we can help.
NATO members have renewed military aid to Ukraine, and even though they're facing obstacles at home, but you said it's not enough, that weapons production is still too expensive. How could NATO quickly change on this level?
Yeah, this is an absolute crucial point. So we need to massively make sure that more military aid gets into Ukraine. And by the way, Italy is doing a lot here. The SAMP-T, this is a missile defense system you very recently delivered, is saving, as we speak, Ukrainian lives as soon as it is fully operational. And that's crucial. And by the way, Italy is doing so much more, of course, as a staunch ally within NATO. But just as an illustration of why this is so important, and you're also right, the industry production, we need it because we need to replenish our stockpiles, whilst at the same time making sure that we can continue supporting Ukraine. We will, I have absolutely no doubt, because all allies are united on this. But that means indeed that we have to sit down with the industry, ask them, what do you need to put in extra shifts, extra production lines, and make this happen?
Ukraine asked to use long-range Western missiles inside Russia. They believe this is the only way to put an end to this war. Do you think this is the main obstacle you see inside Zelensky's peace plan at the moment, and which would be the risks?
Well, I would say for Ukraine to be able, from a position of strength, to get into peace talks one day, at the initiative, obviously, of only the Ukrainian government, we need to make sure that, again, the military aid going into Ukraine is at a massive level. One weapon system alone will not change the outcome. But generally, I would say, NATO would say, when you deliver weapon systems, it's best not to put restrictions on them. But whether there are restrictions on weapon systems is at the end of the day always the sovereign decision of the ally supplying that specific weapon system. So that's not up to me. But generally, I think it would be best if as little as possible that we do not have too many restrictions on the weapon systems we are delivering.
Do you believe that maybe deterrence has changed during this war? I mean, the sense of deterrence now should involve also cyber warfare and either kind of level of the war.
Yeah, well, and that's of course something we are experiencing at the moment, that cyber, but also incursions into our airspace are taking place. We condemn them. Our allies are vigilant to make sure, we have seen Romania only on Thursday acting exactly as we have trained together to do when these incursions take place. That is why, for example, Italy, what you are doing in Bulgaria, which is of course one of the allies on the eastern flank of the alliance, you are leading there with the battle group in Bulgaria. It's crucial that you are there, that all our allies are helping out in other eastern flank allies to make sure that we hold off on, let's say, full-scale onslaughts, but also these more threatening short-term issues like the cyber and air incursions.
Which is your own roadmap to peace?
Well, I would say the main thing we now need to do is to make sure that Ukraine has whatever it needs to fight off this Russian onslaught, to make sure that whenever the day comes, that Zelensky and his team, the Ukrainian people, in full sovereignty, decide that they want to enter into peace talks with Russia, that they do this from a position of strength. That is what is now necessary. And on this, all allies are united. And then you can have debates about some restrictions on a weapon system here or there. You can have debates on exactly the date of NATO invitation. But even on that issue, we are agreed that the future place for Ukraine is within NATO. So there is a strong togetherness within the 32, and you will have these debates always. There's the difference with Russia. There one guy is calling all the shots. Here we have a democracy, a democratic alliance, but in the end it is completely united because this is about our values, but also about our safety and security. If Russia would be successful in Ukraine, that would also have enormous implications for the security and safety of Italy, of the whole of NATO.
And would you say there is a time limit to get to peace?
Well, as soon as possible, obviously, but it is not up to me and not up to the Ukrainians. It was the Russians who started this. Putin is the aggressor here. And he can stop this now, at once, and then we have peace. But if he doesn't stop it, we have to make sure that in the world of 2022, 23, 24, we do not accept a big country invading a small one, trying to colonize in a world of decolonization, to colonize another country. That is unacceptable. And that is why we are all so united in this, so very much united, all 32, to make sure that Ukraine can prevail. And again, I really want to salute the Italian support in this, because you guys are doing so much to help out here, and that is making the difference.
Trump has threatened to withdraw, to pull out the US from the alliance, but you said that you are not concerned about the US election results. Which will be your strategy to keep the US strongly at the table in any case?
NATO is there not because the US wanted to correct a historical mistake after the First World War, not to repeat it after the Second World War, in effect not being engaged in Europe. It is there because in the US, including Donald Trump, people realize that if this part of Europe would not be independent, free, sovereign, democratic, that it would also have a direct security implication for the United States. That is why NATO is there, including Canada, including the United States. I've worked for 4 years with Donald Trump, and I was Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And we had many meetings, and I found the dealings with him extremely pleasant and always very straightforward. He has his views, for example, on the fact that we all need to spend more, and there he was right. That we had to step up as European allies, he was right. And we are doing that. So he has achieved what he wanted there. And also with Kamala Harris, I'm sure with both of them, and you and I will not decide the outcome of the election. It's up to the American people to decide. I don't have a vote. But whoever comes out of that election, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, I'm absolutely convinced that collectively we can work together.
China is also crucial. You said China is not an enemy, but it's a challenge. So what could actually NATO do to increase the impact on China?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that China at the moment is a decisive enabler of the war effort. They supply dual goods, they make it possible for Russia to circumvent sanctions, and in many other ways they are helping the Russians in the war effort. And this will have and is having an effect on China's standing in the world. The defense industry in China is ramping up. So all of this we really have to see with open eyes, and at the same time maintain the dialogue and make sure that we try to convince the Chinese to stay on the right side of history.